3 in the morning, your eyes are open. Not because you wanted to wake up, but because your mind decided it was time to rehearse every mistake you made this week. Every conversation you could have handled better. Every deadline pressing against your chest. You lie there, prisoner in your own skull, watching thoughts spiral like smoke you cannot grab. You tell yourself to stop, to relax, to just sleep, and your mind laughs, because it knows who is really in control here. And it is not you. This is the modern condition. We carry supercomputers in our pockets, unlimited access to information, calendars optimized to the minute. And yet, we cannot convince ourselves to get out of bed when the alarm sounds. We cannot sit in silence for 5 minutes without reaching for a screen. We cannot finish the projects we swore mattered most. Something is broken. And it is not your willpower. It is not your discipline. It is not even your intelligence. What is broken is the chain of command. Somewhere along the way, your mind stopped taking orders. It started giving them. And you started obeying. You open your phone first thing in the morning. Not because you chose to, but because the impulse arrived and you followed. You scroll through content you will not remember. You absorb anxiety that belongs to strangers. You consume noise and call it staying informed. Then you wonder why your thoughts feel like static, why your chest feels tight before noon, why you collapse at night feeling exhausted but having accomplished nothing of weight. The modern world sells you productivity hacks, morning routines, focus apps, dopamine detoxes, but none of them address the root. The route is this. Your mind has staged a quiet rebellion, and every time you negotiate with it, you train it to resist harder. Every time you bargain for 5 more minutes of sleep, you teach it that commands are suggestions. Every time you abandon a task because you do not feel like continuing, you confirm that feelings are the final authority. And so the rebellion grows. Silent, patient, until you no longer recognize who is master and who is servant. This is not laziness. Do not insult yourself with that word. Laziness implies a character flaw. What you are experiencing is disconnection. You are a warrior who has forgotten the sword is not meant to swing wildly. It is meant to obey the hand that holds it. You are not weak. You are untrained. You are not broken. You are undisciplined in the ancient sense. And there is a difference. 500 years ago, a man was born into chaos. Japan was tearing itself apart. Warlords, samurai, blood soaked into every field. His name was Miyamoto Musashi. By 13, he had killed his first opponent in single combat. By 30, he had fought over 60 duels. He never lost, not once. But what made Musashi legendary was not his technique. It was not his speed. It was not even his strategy. It was his mind, or rather, his mastery over it. While other warriors let fear dictate their movements, Musashi moved from stillness. While others hesitated, trapped in the noise between thought and action, Musashi acted from a place beyond thought entirely. He called this state Mushin. No mind, not the absence of thought, but the absence of interference. The sword moves because it must. The body follows because it has been trained. And the mind, for once, is silent, obedient, a servant to the will, not a tyrant over it. Here is where everything changes. Here is where the path you have been walking splits into two. One road leads deeper into the noise. More apps, more hacks, more motivation videos that fade by noon. The other road is older, quieter, harder. It does not promise you will feel inspired. It does not promise comfort. It promises only this, that if you walk it long enough, your mind will learn its place, and you will finally move through life as the one who commands, not the one who begs. Musashi wrote a book in the final weeks of his life, alone in a cave, preparing for death. He called it the way of walking alone. 21 precepts, but beneath all of them, one principle burned. The mind is not what you are. The mind is what you use. It is a tool, a weapon, a servant that has grown arrogant in the absence of discipline. And like any servant who has forgotten its role, it must be retrained, not with punishment, not with hatred, but with something far more powerful. Consistency without negotiation. This is the Kokoro no Shihai, the dominion of the heart-mind. It begins with a brutal truth. Every moment you obey an impulse you did not choose, you are not free. You are a slave wearing the mask of autonomy. Freedom is not doing what you feel like. Freedom is the ability to act against feeling when purpose demands it. The samurai understood this. When Musashi stood before an opponent, fear was present, doubt was present. The desire to flee was present. But none of these ruled him. He acknowledged the feeling, then moved anyway. This is the difference between you and the version of yourself you keep imagining. They are not separated by talent. They are separated by who obeys whom. So how does one begin? Not with grand declarations. Not with 30-day challenges announced to friends who will forget by week 2. You begin with small betrayals of the rebellion. Kaizen, the way of continuous, almost invisible improvement. Your alarm sounds. Your mind screams for 5 more minutes. You do not negotiate. You do not reason. You move. Feet on the floor. War 1 before breakfast. It seems insignificant. It is not. Because what you are training is not the body. You are training the relationship. You are teaching your mind that when you speak, it listens. And you are teaching yourself that you are someone whose commands are worth following. The second principle is to persist with dignity, not grinding yourself into dust for productivity metrics, but refusing to abandon yourself mid-path simply because the path grew steep. When the task becomes uncomfortable, that is not a signal to stop. That is where the training begins. Discomfort is the weight. Your will is the muscle. You do not grow strong lifting what is easy. Then comes stillness. Musashi spent years in isolation, not running from the world, but running toward the silence within. We live in an age terrified of stillness, because stillness reveals the chaos we have been avoiding, the unprocessed grief, the unasked questions, the self we do not want to meet. But the samurai sat with that chaos. Every morning, every evening, not to fix Italiano, but to stop being controlled by it. 5 minutes of stillness, and you'll see how loud your mind truly is. 10 minutes, and you will begin to separate yourself from the noise. 30 minutes, and the noise will quiet on its own, because it realizes you are no longer listening. The final principle is perhaps the hardest. Non-attachment to outcome. You train. You act. You give everything to the strike. But you do not cling to victory, because clinging creates fear, and fear splits the mind. Musashi entered every duel prepared to die. Not because he wanted death, but because accepting it freed him from its control. When you release attachment to the result, something shifts. You stop performing, you start moving from your center, and strangely, impossibly, the results improve. Because you are no longer fighting the opponent and your own mind at the same time. This is not about becoming cold. This is not about erasing emotion. The samurai felt deeply. They wrote poetry about falling blossoms and fleeting seasons. But they did not let feeling interrupt action. They experienced emotion the way a river experiences a stone. It flows around it. It does not stop. What I am offering you is not a system that will be easy. It is not a 7-day reset. It will take months. Perhaps years. Your mind will resist. It will call you extreme. It will remind you how comfortable the old way was. And you will have to decide, again and again, whether you are the master or the servant. Every morning, every impulse, every negotiation you refuse to have. That is the training. There is no graduation, only the slow, quiet realization that one day, your commands land without resistance. That your body moves because you said so. That your mind offers thoughts but no longer issues orders. And you understand finally what Musashi meant. When there is no gap between intention and action, you are free. So now the question sits before you. Not whether you understood. You understood. Not whether you agree. You agree. The question is simpler and infinitely harder. Tomorrow morning, when the alarm sounds, and your mind whispers its familiar lie, what will you do? Will you negotiate, or will you move? The sword waits in your hand. It has always been there. The only thing missing was someone willing to stop asking permission. Silence, now. Not because the video is over, but because what happens next is not something I can give you. It lives in the space between hearing and doing. Go fine, Italiano.